Hello, and welcome to the Health Data Ethics Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Owens, and I'm here with my friend and collaborator, Brandon Reese. Brandon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Jenny. My name is Brandon Reese. I'm a business relationship manager with Purdue University. I've been in that role about 5 years, and I have the opportunity to interact with Jenny at our ongoing annual BRM Connect conference.
Just for those of you joining our series, we're going through Brandon's talk at BRM Connect in October of 2024, where he had segments on being your most honest self, on learning and listening and speaking and telling. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about speaking. So, Brandon, I had a couple of questions about your speaking content, but more than anything, I wanted to talk about how do you tailor what you're saying to your audience?
Yeah, this is a really critical part of the BRM role for me. As someone who has a background in finance and not a background in IT and not a PhD, and my business partners all do have PhDs, tailoring my communication to groups of people is really important. And I think this is another talk in and of itself, but I have found that, and this is not my concept, but people tend to gravitate towards being like analytical or conceptual or procedural or interpersonal. And there are a lot of ways that you can get to a space where you know how someone thinks. Are they a charts and graphs person? Are they big picture thinkers? Are they emotionally connected interpersonal types? Are they the process people, right? Once you start to understand where someone fits, you can start to craft your communication, especially for smaller groups. Like one-on-one is a little bit easier, but all the way up to like a large conference level presentation, you can bring things like charts and graphs or results. You can talk about initiatives. If you're not connecting with your audience, and you can tell by maybe some of the visual cues, body language that we talked about in a previous episode, you can adapt on the fly if you're speaking. If you are creating like a talk that you know you're going to give and you can practice it and you have the opportunity, make sure that your main points are hitting as many people as possible. Tie in some of that conceptual stuff, tie in the analytical stuff, the procedural stuff, and you can bring it all together, especially in the BRM space, with that interpersonal feelings, people, emotional intelligence type things. And when you do this, you're making sure you capture as many people as you can. If you are presenting the best idea possible to someone who is only thinking about the big picture, the long-term goals, they're an initiatives person, and you bring them last year's financial statements, or you bring them a process and a flow chart, they may not care. And you may lose them right there. Conversely, if you go to your procedural people, like your very precise vacation planners, like if they're out there, you schedule every half-hour block when you're on vacation, which are great. That makes my vacation life a lot easier. But if you bring them how whatever you're doing ties into the concept, the initiative, the long-term 5-year plan, and you've got step 1, and you don't really know what step 2 is, maybe step 3 is kind of clear. If you skip a step with these people, they will generally stop because their brain has to go 1, then 2, then 3, then A, then B, then C, and they stop listening. And that is how you make less impact. So when you can, try to craft your communication directly for your audience. You can do it in writing as well, but since we're discussing speaking, that's a short overview of how I do that.
That is great, and thank you. I want to know more about how you use that knowledge of your audience to really craft the correct thought-provoking questions as you're speaking with people. How do you use that knowledge to kind of pick out, and even tying us back to our first episode, we were talking about understanding what a win is for your business units, knowing people's various, priorities and styles. How do you make sure that you're eliciting the kind of feedback that you need?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that is not an instantaneous, you do this and then something I say, and I don't know if this is my quote, is probably not, but just because something is important and obvious to you does not mean it is to them. Mm-hmm. So you may have a very concrete idea of why this matters, what you're trying to do as a BRM, what this project means to the organization, and the other person just doesn't get it. And you don't know why. Like, why don't you understand the thing that I'm trying to say? We tie that back into what we just spoke about in trying to craft that communication around what type of person, what type of listener, learner they may be. But you get that knowledge over time through asking relevant questions or watching them very closely when you're giving them information. So over the course of a few months or maybe even years, you may learn that this person, while not in a procedural role, they're not an operational, they don't clear tickets, whatever it might be. They're really an empathetic people type person. And that's how they ended up the manager of that. But their role is not really that. So being able to tease out what the job duties are from how that person really thinks and needs to be communicated with is something that takes time and intentional observation. So you can almost, this is something I've done. You can say that it's okay to not know what you don't know, but then in parentheses, even if you do. So you can ask questions that you may already have a pretty good idea on the handle on what the answer is in a way that facilitates the information going from one person to another. Let's say there's a 3 or more part conversation happening around you. You may understand all parts of whatever this project or process is. And in this example, the conceptual person, the goals, the long-term person, they're giving a talk. They're the one holding the talking stick, and they're talking about why this is really important. And you can pay attention to the room, virtually or otherwise, hopefully if they have the camera on, and see that maybe the analytical types are just not picking it up, or they're disengaged through whatever metric you know about having a relationship with this person. You can ask that person talking, that conceptual person, hey, this is all great. I totally understand how we get from A to B, but could you maybe break down what the steps along the way look like, or what results, charts, graphs, things, what things in the past show us that we can get from A to B? And that answer can help facilitate the transfer of information from that person to the other. You really did it, but you heard it from the person that was, in charge of the initiative or whatever it might be. And getting them to do that not only tells you, okay, they're probably this type of speaker and this type of learner, but it gets you that information for whoever else is in the room that you can engage in that way. So sometimes asking that like open-ended question of, hey, I don't really understand this. Could you explain it? You might, but can you explain it in this way? Can really help those people out. And when you do that, you also get a lot of credibility. I mentioned, I think in our first episode that we did, it's okay not to know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And also that I don't have a technology background. So walking in and saying like, hey, I don't really know. This is the thing that I do. I'm the relationship person. I'm here to make your life easier and help enable a win for you in any way I can. When you do that, whoever else in the room is like, oh, okay. Thanks for that. You may never get an actual thanks, but generally,
Yeah. One more thing on the speaking side that I wanted to probe about, and this is an area where I am actively working myself, is the use of strategic silence, or as I generally put it, Jenny, please stop trying to fill all the airtime.
Quiet, wasn't it? Yeah. So that 3 seconds I was watching the clock up there felt like, did anyone look at their phone and say, oh man, did it pause? Was it the end of the track? This is something that I struggled with from high school speaking class, was the ums, ands, and so's. And I know I've been doing a little bit today, but when you're practicing something and not just like presentations for a conference, if it's an important conversation, rehearse it. There's a slide in my talk that actually it was the thing we talked about earlier, the meeting with yourself in a previous episode. Tom with the Institute asked like, hey, when you do this, do you talk to yourself? And I wanted to say like, no, Tom, of course I don't talk to myself. That's what a crazy person would do. But yeah, I do. And since the title of the talk is Your Most Honest Self, like I'm going to have to say I do too.
I mean, I record videos of myself talking and put them up on YouTube.
Exactly.
What is that if not a conversation with myself?
And it is really important, one, to make sure that what you're saying is tailored to your audience correctly, because how it sounds coming out of your mouth can be very different than how it sounds going into someone else's ears. It enables you to listen to make sure you're hitting all those types, those personality types we've talked about. But especially when speaking in person, this is less effective virtually because people just think your screen is frozen or like your connection is bad. But in person, strategic silence can make people pay attention if they're distracted. If you've got a room of, let's say, more than 5 people, somebody in there is probably thinking about something else, right? They're on their phone, they've got another meeting, whatever it is, and it may be completely work related. It doesn't have anything to do with you necessarily. But you can ask a question, even a rhetorical one, and just wait for someone to answer. And that pause will make whoever's kind of paying attention stop what they're doing and look up. It's like a FOMO effect for your brain. Like, oh, what am I missing up here? In the presentation, I stopped for 10 seconds. And I clicked. I had a pen or a presenter clicker, and I just kind of tapped it on my finger right next to the microphone that was on my lapel. So I have a ring on my index finger, and I click, 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 and I watched the room. And I probably had 50 people in that conference room, and I saw the people, especially in the back, kind of like lift their head up. Oh, what's going on? And I had them, right? I had them maybe just for that little bit, but strategic silence can provide other benefits besides just pulling someone's attention back. It can give the listener's brain a chance to take whatever stream of noise was you talking for the last however long, a pause just long enough for them to commit it to maybe short-term, maybe long-term memory, especially in a conference type situation where you sit down and as a listener, you expect to listen to one person talk for 45 minutes straight. Like, it's a lot. Like, attention spans are not maybe what they used to be. Maybe they never really were, and we were just told to be good kids and listen for, an 8-hour school day, whatever it was. But expecting people to walk away with all the things, or even a portion of the things that you talked about, if you just do 45-minute stream of consciousness, is a lot to ask. So pausing between points can help people's brain take a beat and go, oh yeah, and think about it just a little bit. I wonder if I do that. I know somebody that is a conceptual person, right? And they've now attached some memory of theirs to what you were saying, which helps solidify it in their own memory. As the speaker, taking that short pause gives your brain a little bit of time to do a few things, and that is observe your audience, watch their body language. Are they engaged? Are they messing with their laptop? Are they looking at their phone? Are they looking at their watch? It gives you a beat to think about what the next thing might be. If you're doing this on the fly, like I am right now, I don't necessarily know what I'm going to say after the next sentence. So that 2-second pause gives you time to think, okay, maybe I want to take this in this direction. And it's not as long as it feels like. And it's really uncomfortable the first few times you do it. Like 10 seconds felt like an eternity in that room. Even a couple of seconds is enough that people go, what's happening here? So that is strategic silence. It's something that I am always working on because the most powerful speakers I've seen used it well. A good TED Talk versus an okay TED Talk. If you take out all the words and the meaning behind it, what they're saying, and just listen to it like music, almost like audio, there are breaks, like there are little stops, little pauses in there that are completely silent. And I find that to be, at least for me, pretty effective in doing the things that I mentioned.
Now I'm going to think about my dynamic range as a speaker. So thank you for that metaphor. That's going to be really interesting and fun. Brandon, thank you as always for coming on the podcast. I always leave with more thoughts in my head than I started. So this has been amazing, thought-provoking content. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, we got 10 minutes